You've done the things you were supposed to do. Not perfectly. Nobody does anything perfectly, but reasonably. You've worked. You've been sensible with money for the most part. More sensible than you used to be. More sensible than some people you know. You've read enough about personal finance to understand the basics. Spend less than you earn. Save something. Avoid unnecessary debt. Invest if you can. You understand these things. You've applied them with varying degrees of consistency over the years. And yet the feeling of being financially ahead, the specific, settled quality of a financial life that is genuinely building towards something rather than simply sustaining itself from month to month, hasn't quite arrived. The account grows slowly when nothing goes wrong and returns to where it started when something does. The income has increased over the years, but the financial breathing room hasn't increased proportionally. The retirement account exists, but the number in it, examined honestly, produces a specific unease rather than confidence. This is not a crisis. It doesn't look like a crisis from the outside, but it has a specific texture from the inside, the texture of doing everything approximately right and still not feeling financially ahead, of following the advice and finding that the advice, followed correctly, produces adequacy rather than the genuine financial well-being that was supposed to follow from it. The reason is almost never what the personal finance industry suggests. It is almost never insufficient income, insufficient saving rate, or incorrect investment allocation, though all of these can be optimized. It is almost always the absence of 3 prior questions that the personal finance industry assumes have already been answered, that almost nobody has actually answered, and that no amount of budgeting advice or investment strategy can substitute for. 3 questions. In Japan, the framework for these questions draws from centuries of philosophical and practical wisdom about the relationship between money and a genuinely good life. Not the maximally wealthy life, but the genuinely good one. The distinction matters because the maximally wealthy life and the genuinely good life require different financial behaviors, and most people, without ever making a conscious choice, end up pursuing one while believing they are building the other. The 3 questions are not about how to make more money. They are about what money is for, what enough means, and whether the spending that consumes the income is building something real or performing something that only resembles it. Answer them honestly, and the financial strategy that follows becomes clear in a way that no generic advice can produce, because the strategy is finally matched to an actual specific understanding of what it is supposed to build. The Japanese concept at the center of this video is Yutakasa, richness, fullness, genuine prosperity, which is distinct from Tomi, the word for wealth as accumulated material quantity. Yutakasa is not the absence of money. It is a specific quality of financial life, the quality of a life in which money serves its genuine purpose, rather than running as an anxiety-producing background system that never quite arrives at any destination. The person with Yutakasa is not necessarily wealthy in the Tomi sense. They are wealthy in the sense of having a financial life that is genuinely aligned with what they value, genuinely progressing toward a threshold they have actually defined, and genuinely building the security they intend rather than performing a version of it. The 3 questions are the path to Yutakasa. They are not complicated. They are, however, genuinely difficult, not because the answers are hard to find, but because most people have been so thoroughly trained to focus on financial methods that the prior questions about financial purpose have never been seriously asked. 3 questions. Each one Japanese in philosophical origin. Together, they produce the specific financial clarity that transforms adequacy into genuine, compounding, increasingly irreversible financial well-being. Question 1. What is money for? In my specific life. This question sounds obvious. It is not. The obvious answer, money is for security, for freedom, for the ability to do what you want, is not an answer. It is a category. It is the same answer everyone gives, including the people whose financial lives are producing genuine Yutakasa and the people whose financial lives are producing adequacy at best. The category is not wrong. It is simply too general to produce any specific financial behavior, which is why the same category answer appears in the financial philosophy of people with completely different, often incompatible financial behaviors. The Ikigai framework, the Japanese concept of genuine purpose, the reason for getting up in the morning that sits at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what can support you financially, applied to money asks a more specific question. What does money actually do in your life that nothing else could substitute for? Not what does money do in general, What does it do specifically, in your specific life, for the specific things you specifically value? The answer to this question is almost always narrower than the category answer suggests, and the narrowness is important because it identifies the specific financial uses that genuinely produce the thing money is supposed to produce. Call it security, freedom, flourishing, whatever the category word is, and distinguishes them from the financial uses that consume the resources that would produce it without producing it. Most people, if they answer this question with genuine honesty rather than aspirational generality, find that money serves 3 or 4 genuinely specific purposes in their lives. Not 20, 3 or 4. The specific home environment that produces genuine restoration and comfort. The specific experiences, travel, or particular kinds of learning or particular relationships that produce genuine aliveness rather than the performance of living. The specific security threshold, not infinite security, a specific number below which genuine anxiety is produced and above which the anxiety is genuinely absent. Outside these 3 or 4 specific purposes, money is consumed by an enormous variety of spending that is neither genuinely purposeful nor genuinely pleasurable. The default spending of someone who has never answered the question of what money is actually for, who spends on things that seem like they should produce the category answer, security, freedom, the good life, without having identified whether they actually do. The Japanese financial practice of kakebo intersects here not just as an awareness tool, but as a revelatory one. The person who tracks their spending honestly for 3 months and then asks which of these expenditures actually produced something I genuinely value is almost always surprised by the answer. A significant portion of the spending, often 30 to 40%, sometimes more, produced nothing that the person would identify as genuinely valuable if asked directly. It was default spending, spending in the category direction without landing on any specific purpose. The first question doesn't produce a budget. It produces a purpose map, a specific, honest identification of what money is actually for in this specific life, which makes every subsequent financial decision either clearly purposeful, aligned with the map, or clearly questionable, not on the map. The person with a purpose map spends less on off-map consumption without feeling deprived, because off-map consumption wasn't producing anything they valued anyway. They have more available for on-map spending and for the saving and investing that builds the security that is, for most people, the most important item on the map. The practical exercise. Spend 30 minutes this week answering this question in writing. Specifically, not money is for security and freedom. What specific things does money make possible in your life that nothing else could substitute for? Write them down. Be honest. If the list is longer than 5 items, examine each one carefully. The things that genuinely produce what you value from the things that are on the list, because they seem like they should. The genuine list is almost always shorter than the first draft. And the shorter, more honest list is the foundation of a financial life that is finally building towards something real. Question 2. What does enough actually mean for me? The word enough appears constantly in financial advice and almost never receives a specific answer. Enough to retire, enough to feel secure, enough to stop worrying. These are all category answers again, the same answers everyone gives. The answers that produce no specific threshold, no specific number, no specific moment at which the financial life can be said to have arrived at its destination. And without a specific destination, the financial life pursues more indefinitely. Not because more is genuinely needed, but because enough was never defined, which means it can never be reached. The Japanese concept of Kanshuku, deliberate frugality as aesthetic, the practiced recognition that a life of enough is a more genuinely satisfying experience than a life of more, produces a specific behavioral consequence when applied to this question. The person who has genuinely defined their enough threshold stops being in competition with an undefined horizon and starts building, with compounding efficiency, toward a specific, reachable destination. The behavioral finance research on this is consistent and underemphasized. The most significant single predictor of long-term wealth accumulation is not income level, saving rate, or investment return. It is the clarity and stability of the definition of enough. The person who has defined enough at a specific, honest, achievable level and who directs their financial behavior toward that specific threshold accumulates financial security at a significantly faster rate than the person pursuing more without a definition. regardless of income level, because every financial decision is evaluated against a specific destination rather than against an undefined horizon. Defining enough requires two specific answers that most people have never produced. What is the minimum financial foundation that would produce genuine security rather than the performance of it? And what is the specific spending level that would produce genuine satisfaction rather than the performance of it? The minimum security foundation is a specific number, not infinite savings, a specific amount that would allow the person to face a specific set of foreseeable and unforeseeable challenges without the acute anxiety that financial insecurity produces. This number is almost always lower than people assume when they think about it in the abstract. I'd need to be set for life, and almost always higher than their current emergency fund when they calculate it honestly. The gap between the two is the most productive focus of financial behavior available. The satisfaction spending level is also a specific number, the monthly or annual expenditure at which the genuine desires identified by question 1 are met without excess. This number, for most people who have honestly answered question 1, is significantly lower than their current spending, because current spending includes substantial off-map consumption that doesn't appear in the genuine desire list. The Japanese practice of Hara Hachi, the 80% full principle applied to eating, applies here as a structural metaphor. Enough is the point at which genuine satisfaction is produced. Not maximum satisfaction, the point at which the genuine satisfaction that money actually provides in this specific life is met. Beyond that point, additional spending produces diminishing returns at best and active detriment at worst, because the resources consumed could be compounding toward the security threshold that is, for most people, the most important item on the purpose map. The practical exercise. This week, produce two specific numbers. The security threshold, the specific financial reserve that would allow you to face the foreseeable challenges of your specific life without acute anxiety. And the satisfaction spending level, the monthly expenditure at which the genuine desires on your question 1 purpose map are genuinely met. These two numbers, produced honestly, define your enough. Every financial decision can now be evaluated against a specific destination. The clarity this produces is immediately actionable and compounds over time. Question 3. Am I building wealth or performing wealth? This is the hardest question. It is hard not because the answer is difficult to find, but because the honest answer, for a significant proportion of people in consumer economies, is the second one, and the second answer is deeply uncomfortable to sit with. Performing wealth is the pattern of spending that produces the appearance of financial well-being without building its substance. It is the house in the neighborhood that signals a certain income level, rather than a home sized to genuine need. It is the car that communicates a certain status, rather than the transportation that serves a genuine purpose. It is the restaurant, the wardrobe, the vacation, the subscription, the renovation, each individually reasonable, collectively consuming the income that would, directed differently, produce the security and freedom that the performances are supposed to signal. The Japanese concept of Katachi, form, the outward shape of things, applied critically here produces a specific diagnostic question. Does the form of my financial life reflect its genuine content, or is the form consuming the resources that would produce the content? The kintsugi bowl is beautiful because of what it has been through, not because of the appearance it presents. The financial life built on genuine security and genuine purpose has a different outward form than the financial life built on performance, typically quieter, less immediately impressive, and compounding. The Mottainai principle intersects here specifically. The resources consumed by performance spending, the income directed toward the signals of wealth rather than the substance of it, are not a neutral choice. They represent the genuine opportunity cost of building wealth, the compounding investment not made, the security threshold not reached, the financial freedom not built, because the resources were directed toward the appearance of the destination rather than the destination itself. The research on this is consistent across multiple studies. The genuinely wealthy, defined as people whose financial security is real and whose financial trajectory is compounding, consume significantly less of the markers of wealth than the population that appears wealthy from the outside. The luxury car, the designer item, the premium address, these are consumed at significantly higher rates by people in the income brackets below genuine wealth than by people in the genuine wealth brackets, precisely because people building genuine wealth direct resources toward the substance rather than the performance. This is not an argument for austerity or performance-free living. Some spending on things that produce genuine pleasure and genuine social connection is both legitimate and valuable. It appears on the question 1 purpose map of most people who answer it honestly. The question is not whether any performance-adjacent spending is happening. It is whether the aggregate pattern of financial behavior is building genuine security and genuine freedom at a rate that will reach the enough threshold defined by question 2, or whether the performance pattern is consuming the resources that would make that building possible. The honest answer to this question requires looking at the aggregate pattern, not the individual spending decision, which can almost always be individually justified, but the pattern across 12 months of spending and saving and investing. Is the security threshold getting closer at a rate consistent with the timeline that matters to this specific person? Is the purpose map being funded? Is the wealth being built? Or is the appearance of wealth being maintained? The practical exercise. Pull 12 months of financial data, not to audit individual decisions, to examine the aggregate pattern. What proportion of income is genuinely building the security threshold? What proportion is funding the purpose map? What proportion is neither? Is sustaining a lifestyle whose genuine value, if honestly examined, does not appear on the purpose map that question 1 produced? The answer to this question, seen clearly, produces a specific, actionable understanding of what needs to change, not in the direction of deprivation, but in the direction of genuine Yutakasa, the financial life that is genuinely building what it appears to be building. 3 questions, each one deceptively simple, each one producing, when answered honestly, a specific clarity that no financial strategy can substitute for, because the strategy is finally matched to a genuine understanding of what it is supposed to build. What is money for, in your specific life? The purpose map that this question produces makes every financial decision either clearly purposeful or clearly questionable, which reduces off-map spending without deprivation and increases the resources available for what genuinely matters. What does enough actually mean for you? The specific security threshold and satisfaction spending level that this question produces replace an undefined horizon with a reachable destination, which transforms financial behavior from indefinite pursuit into compounding, increasingly efficient progress towards something real. Am I building wealth or performing wealth? The honest answer to this question, the hardest one, identifies the specific aggregate pattern that is either building the financial life the first 2 questions describe or consuming the resources that would build it. Yutakasa, not Tomi, not the abstract accumulation of maximum wealth. The specific, genuine richness of a financial life that is actually aligned with what matters, actually progressing toward a destination that has actually been defined, and actually building the substance rather than the performance of financial well-being. The 3 questions don't make getting rich simple. They make it specific, and specific is the only form in which it actually happens. If this felt like something your financial life needed to hear, there's more waiting for you here.